Cross my heart and hope to die with my slide of devil's spine.
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. I know that it's difficult. I'm stacking this paper, it's sort of habitual. I blow the residual and fucking your bitch like it's part of my ritual. Part of the visual, but money you give me a heart on it's typical. I wanted it physical, $1 million I count up in intervals. Without it I'm miserable. Don't wanna fall off, so I'm all in my bag. Thinking God like it's biblical. I know it's gonna solve every problem I have. I ball on the principle. Remember the teachers is all I am. Now look all of them pitiful, and all of a sudden I'm so good at math. Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up. Count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Can't take it when you die, but you can't live without it. Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Can't take it when you die. Uno, dos, tres. Big bills, big bills. I fell in love with big wheels and quick thrills. My drinking running tip drills. Can't sit still. Don't give a fuck if it kills. It mixed well. I'm only counting big bills, big bills. I fell in love with big wheels and quick thrills. My drinking running tip drills. Can't sit still. Don't give a fuck if it kills. It mixed well. I'm only counting. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Proceed with caution. I heard if you taste it, it only results in a hole in your heart. Could I take the whole cake and I won't leave a portion? It's only an organ. Thank God mama couldn't afford the abortion. The loneliest orphan. I flip my misfortune and grow me a fortune. My rollie is scorching. Them niggas that hated it slowly endorsing. Not coldly important. My niggas beside me like Tommy and Martin. We ballin' your cotton. Then skate with your like we Tony your Harton. She don't need the garments. She horny from all of the money we countin'. Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up. Count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Can't take it when you die, but you can't live without it. Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it, count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Can't take it when you die. Uno, dos.
Will I fall? Will I fly?
Peace, peace, peace. Everybody is a guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for another edition of Business of Benefits, aka the notorious BTG has Natalie, the Money Momma, Goldberg in the building. How you doing, Natalie?
Hey, Daryl. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for jumping in here. I figured we'd play a little bit of J. Cole talking about money because you're the Money Momma. So I felt that was appropriate.
Count it up. And then I was like, Daryl, how many bow ties do you have? Really? Let's count them up.
There's a drawer full of them that my wife gets upset when I go buy more. So I got a bunch of them.
I get
but
it.
I want to say,
my husband and socks. I'm like, you got enough socks.
Guys always have something we buy too much of, so that's normal. But I want to say thank you to Team Live, Team Replay, however you consume the content. We appreciate it. Please let us know below in the comments. And Natalie and I met by way of in the interwebs of LinkedIn. I talk about life insurance. She talks about preparing for things ahead of using a life insurance. So I thought it made common sense for us to talk to each other. So Natalie, for the people that have not seen you on all the different platforms like Fox News, CBS, and all different places, let them know what you do and your gift for the world.
The gift to the world is, I think, the most important. It's the gift of legacy. And you get to define it one time. It's a living legacy. And if you don't get it right, there's no redos. Unfortunately, there's no do-overs. So we make sure that your legacy is one filled with love, light, and all the good things in the world. And it's a living legacy. We get to define it each and every day and each and every interaction we have. That's the gift.
Ooh, and a no do-over. That's powerful. No do-overs and legacy. That's important to realize with this social media world. You can always redo your profile, but you can't redo your legacy. So we all have origin stories for how we get into things like this. So you and I think we're close to the same age spectrum. I know you wrote a book about millennials. I'm barely a millennial by Wikipedia standards, but what got you into... I'm 81, so I'm like barely on the edge and the cusp. My wife's like, "You're not a millennial." I'm like, "Well, look, Wikipedia says I am," and that's a very reliable data source.
Correct.
But what got you into the estate planning world?
It's incredible. So my story starts at 15 years old, where I was walking across the street and two guys were racing their cars from light to light, and one hit me at 60 miles an hour. And I survived. And I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I survived." The doctor couldn't believe it. The doctor couldn't believe I was walking and having a life after this. And I knew that I had to give back and bring true justice to the world. And I thought that would be through the court systems and fighting in court for the little guy or little girl, whatever. And then I realized very quickly that there's so much time, so much pent up stuff, so much money that goes into the system, and is it really where justice is found? And I thought, what if we stay out of the court system forever? And what if we actually took care of our own affairs so that we never had a third party neutral, a judge being able to tell us what we can and cannot do with our money? Wouldn't that be the most powerful form of justice that I could bring to this world? And that's what we do with trust planning all day long.
So this is a great segue to start things off. Real quick, let me get the audience involved because we have some people jump in here to let us know we're watching. We have Ursuline. She says she's Team Live. Thanks for jumping in, Queen. Yolanda Chin. She's also Team Live. She said hello. And Team Live right there. And then Melinda Wells. I had a Zoom with her. She's in California. We had a Zoom earlier. She'll be in the show probably some coming weeks, but she wanted to tune in and see what you're talking about.
Cool.
So let's start
Hi to all.
Sorry. Slight delay. Sorry about that. I'm going to get a good baseline here. Wills and trusts. They're the two most common things. I work in life insurance, so I hear those phrases often, but people look at me like it's the same word. So what is the difference for the people that have never had an estate attorney, probate situation with their family, any kind of legal expertise? What is the key difference or basic difference between a will and a trust?
The trust is the big brother or the big sister to the will. And the will is kind of the ugly stepsister, if you will. Because what it does is similar to the trust in this way. It explains who gets what when I'm no longer here and if I'm disabled, okay? What it does not do, though, is skip a very long, tedious, and expensive proceeding that we call probate. Probate literally means to prove a will. And that means that if you die with just a will, no trust, that has to go through the court process, which can cost literally tens of thousands of dollars. And that's if there's no one fighting. If people are fighting, good luck. You can literally put flame to your money and it'll be better off than the estate litigation and what it costs. Seriously.
Ooh, man. Yeah, I tagged a friend of mine that's a probate judge. I got into this because of her family always having to fight over issues when somebody passed away. This becomes a big messy issue, and this is something my family never talked about. And it's usually in African American families. What happens when you mention all that fighting is they just let it go. People just go through all the fighting and they're like, forget it. Let the state take the land. Let the state take the house. I don't care about the money. It's going to get tied up in all this. So from your personal experience, is this usually like an issue that most of the younger generations have when they're dealing with their parents? Or is it more like the Gen X and boomers have, a big hurdle to get over with this because the information wasn't given to them?
Gen X and boomers have a real issue. They're the ones who are typically fighting these estate litigations. They're the ones who've typically lost somebody. And when that happens, what I hear a lot is true colors have come out. I can't believe my sibling is acting like this. There's generally three categories that estate litigation falls under. Cain and Abel. I'm the good sibling. They're the bad sibling. Evil stepmother. She came in and took everything. or a trustee that couldn't be trusted. So you hire a fiduciary or someone in your family, and they wipe you clean. Those are the three categories that typically happen in estate litigation, and they are incredibly expensive to fight.
Okay, so the average person probably is going to say, forget it, I'm not going to write this because it's too expensive.
Well, Daryl, that would make sense, but we're not always rational, reasonable people, especially when it's dealing with who did mom love more?
Ooh.
And the issues of 80 years of being siblings and the, things that we buried under the mountain for the sake of mom and dad, and they're no longer here. And then the skeletons come out. I mean, it gets dirty.
Well, this has probably made you busier the last year, unfortunately, because we've lost over 600,000 people because of COVID-19. And I realized you had a video I saw that you were giving away will preparation for first line responders. And obviously that's the easier activity than making a trust we'll get into in a second. But how fruitful or rewarding was it to see you at least having these people have a baseline that are helping keep us alive?
It was incredible. To me, I thought I had my daughter was 2.5 months when COVID first happened. And I basically rallied to make this do-it-yourself platform because I needed to do something.
Right.
To help people. I mean, really, I couldn't even bear the thought of thinking a doctor, a nurse goes in to take care of people and they might not be coming back to see their kids. Like, that's not okay. Yeah.
And that's awesome you did that, because I mean, most people, like in my world, I'm writing a lot of life insurance and they rarely have a will. So, I mean, I'm thinking of these nurses that are working 20-hour shifts, 15-hour shifts, things like that. They never have time to really sit and stop to think about what if COVID was my final thing. So as you did that and saw these different spectrums of people, what was the biggest reason people didn't go into a will preparation or making a trust?
There's a few reasons. The first reason is they think it's too expensive. They know they're going to have to pay a lawyer, and they don't want to know what that's going to cost because most people in America, unfortunately, are living paycheck to paycheck. So they're like, okay, I get that it's important, but maybe I don't have, they don't think they might have enough to plan. I think that is a completely terrible way to think about it, because if you have children, there's nothing more valuable than that. And who is going to be the guardian of those children if, God forbid, you're no longer around, okay? And then the second thing is, no one wants to think about it. Who wants to think about their mortality? It sucks. It's not. Right. And life insurance has figured out. Life insurance. Estate planning attorneys are not as great branders. Estate planning, death planning. I mean, really, who wants to talk about that, right? Which is why I changed the conversation to life and legacy planning.
Okay.
And lastly, it's the cost. And it's the time. So it's not just the time, the cost of, let's say, it's, a few $1,000 for a basic plan around the country that's pretty standard. But it's, oh my God, like, I have to spend the time doing it. I have to meet the lawyer, and I have to actually make the decisions that I don't want to make. Because a lot of families, the biggest reason I hear that young couples with children do not make wills is they say to me, we couldn't decide who would be the guardians of our kids. And I say, that's all well and good, but here's the deal. You decide, or a judge who's never met you and your kids decide, and in that time, Child Protective Services take over your kids' care. Is that something you can live with? And then it's kind of, and I say, look, this is not set in stone. This is just a piece of paper. We can change it. So if things change, you change it. But that's not a reason not to do it.
Yeah. So let's break down some stuff from people that, I jokingly said in the post that there's lawyers charged by the hour, so it's hard to get basic information for stuff, honestly. So you're here graciously giving us some time. So when somebody's thinking about making a trust, you said it's the big brother. What is the, I know the answer to this, but I want the audience to get into this. What is the freedom you get from a trust that you don't get from a will?
Sure. It's a private transaction, and it is able to happen without the involvement of a court, which costs a lot of money and time. Now, here's the thing with the trust. A lot of people might get a trust, or they might get it online, or they might go to a lawyer. However, that trust needs to be what we call in the vernacular funded in order for it to work. In other words, this is my coffee cup. But without coffee in it, it does nothing for me. Nothing. Just take up space on my desk. That's it. You have to put the coffee in to be able to drink it and use the cup for what it was meant for. Same thing with assets. You have to change title. You have to literally go to your bank and change the name on the account. You have to go to Daryl and you say, I have a trust. We're going to put the insurance into the trust now. I'm going to put my deed to my house into the name of the trust. These are all steps that have to be taken after the document is actually made in order for it to get you to where you thought you were going to be as a result of getting the trust. And it's a beautiful hand-holding experience with our clients because they have to do some of the work. You know, you can't go to the bank on their behalf and be like, hey, Chase Banker, give me this account right now. Or, you know, it's like you have to be proactive. But if you don't do it, your kids or anyone you love who ends up getting it will have to do it. It's going to cost a lot more money. And guess what? Like, you can't speak to them from 6 feet under and say, hey, Bobby, I have an account at A&B Bank. Don't forget about it. So the first thing I tell my clients, and I would tell anybody, is if you want to start planning for your future, you have to have a very sobering conversation with yourself and write down everything that you have. It's an inventory, like everything. Because that one little account that could be out in the ether that you might not even remember because you didn't look at your unclaimed funds in your state could hold up the process. I mean, people don't even know they could be missing real money. Unclaimed funds in New York alone has, I think, $8 or $9 billion sitting there.
Yeah, that's a crazy. My wife and I went to that site a while ago, and I had like a check from a job I didn't know I had, that she had something from like a reversal of something. So that's very important that people look into that. And you also mentioned that the trust is a private transaction. So when you have a will, let's kind of play this out for people. If you only have a will and somebody passes away, what you mentioned the freedom you lose. What's something they lose in that decision? If they said in the will, my assets go to Billy. Is that as clear as it sounds? Because people think that that's all you need.
It is, but here's what happens, okay? The original will gets into the court, and the court uploads it. Now, the court is a completely public arena. So let's say you only have Bobby, but you're cutting out your other son or daughter. Well, anyone who ever wants to look can now see that there was family drama, okay? Number two is the court is going to require your family tree to be attested to, depending on if there's one or two people that you're giving it to, but let's say in your example, that it's only the one son, Bobby, and Rachel, their daughter, is getting cut out. Well, here's the deal. As part of the probate process, you have to serve Rachel and let her know that Bobby, who's the named beneficiary and executor, is going to be appointed as the executor. And Rachel, do you have any issues with that? And if Rachel doesn't sign on the waiver and allow for that to happen, you've just invited an estate litigation. All you want to do is take care of your one kid who was taking care of you the whole time. And yet now you've opened the door to litigation because of the court process of what has to happen in probate. With a trust, it's not like that. Now, I say that broadly. In California, for example, even with a trust, you have to serve upon all people in the family tree within 120 days, right? So they have a 120-day contestable period. But that is not so for many other jurisdictions. Okay. So it's tremendously important. Now, the reason to still do a trust in California is you have no idea what it costs to pay me to do your probate. In California, by statute, meaning by law, on the first $1,000 gross, you can have an $800,000 mortgage, but on the gross, I could take $23,000 as a matter of law. On $3 million of gross assets, I can take $43,000. And it goes up and up from there. Now, I don't know about all of you, but most of you, I think, would rather give that money to your kids than give it to the lawyer. If I am wrong, please call me. I would happily take that money from you right now as a transaction.
It's the law. Why not? And that's interesting you mentioned that, because when you look at TV and movies, they always sensationalize the will, like somebody objected. And that's probably why we don't hear about trust as much, because the will has that contestability where the trust doesn't as much have that piece. And then we had a comment up here from Stacey Case, and she actually said probate is a biatch. So she does not like probate.
No doubt. And you know what, truly, it's incredible to me. So here's why probate back in the day was necessary, is because they wanted to make sure that you didn't have a gun to a person's head or a sword or whatever
Right.
to force them to say that you're going to be the beneficiary. Okay. And I get that. You needed 2 witnesses that were not disinterested, so they were not getting under the will. Great. I totally get it. Today, with Zoom, virtual signings, DocuSigns, WTF do we need this process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very antiquated, and it's a problem. So, I mean, this is something you never hear about in financial awareness is trust. I learned about it a while ago, and it's part of my work, but usually most people aren't exposed to that. So when you talk to the average family, do they usually just say, hey, Natalie, I want to get a will? And then you got to kind of talk to them and explain, well, hey, you might want to trust because of what you told me.
Yes. And look, many of my clients are at the $5-10 million plus range. God bless them. They're doing great. And they have taken some time to educate themselves. Most people, though, who call me and say, I want a will, are begging for a trust, but they just don't know it. They want.
Say that again. Wait, I'll say that again.
Anyone who's calling me for a will is begging for a trust, but they just don't know it. Because if you could have a transaction that keeps it all private, that's not going to cost you money on the back end, that is going to have your kids stay in harmony as much as possible, why wouldn't you want that?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants that.
Powerful. So let's get another myth buster thing right now. I'm having fun with these dispelling things for wills and trusts. Does one last longer than the other for people to understand it? Does a trust last longer than a will or vice versa?
So a will is a transactional thing. You can make a will anytime until your death, as long as you have capacity. And it's effectuated upon death, meaning through that probate process, the will takes effect and does what it does. A trust can last for 365 years in Nevada, 1,000 years in Alaska. Do you know what that means? You want to talk about generational wealth?
Yeah.
If you're not having a trust as part of that process, you don't know what the F you're talking about. Generational wealth is through allowing those assets to grow, asset protected from any creditor, any divorce, and from taxes.
Get some reaction for that, people, because this is what drives me crazy. I don't know if you use Clubhouse at all, Natalie, but
oh yeah.
Okay, so Clubhouse is very notorious for a lot of people go up there, generational wealth, get real estate, and all these billionaires are on Clubhouse. And it drives me crazy that the one thing for my work is that the most simple form of generational wealth is life insurance, because somebody dies, the next generation gets it. It's pretty easy. Anybody can make some kind of generational wealth. But the part you're mentioning is the long lasting that people don't think about. And I'm sure you don't hear that on Clubhouse either, or any place you go.
Here's the issue with Clubhouse, which I love, and I've gotten clients on, and it's awesome. It's like, you don't know shit, dude. Who are you educating here? Like, who is talking, right? Like, where are your credentials? And look, I'm all about people who like make something of themselves without going through school and without I am like, wow, good for you. I love it. However, in some things, like generational wealth planning through trusts that are 100-page legal documents, you gotta know a little something.
Right. Yeah, that's important in this day and age we're in with the internet running a lot of things, is that we got to understand that you got to be careful where you get your information from. So that's why I trust Natalie in this conversation. You have a great book, The Millennials Guide to the Universe. Let's break that down for people, because the title alone was just, I like the title. What were you trying to help millennials that haven't read it or that are yet to read it? What were you trying to help them learn from that book?
So I did college in 2 years, and I did law school in 2.5, full scholarship, literally zero debt. And that is the one thing in my life that has set me free. Because people think I'm going to go to college and I'm going to spend all this money. Look, you have to really understand. Are you going to Harvard or Yale? That will open doors for you, but not because you're going to learn better stuff. The stuff you learn is going to be, by the way, online at Coursera for free. It is the network, and you have to understand what is the transaction you're going into. The transaction is not the education, it is the network, and make that very clear. If you're going to Joe Schmo University, what are you wasting your time for? I mean, seriously, and your money. Because I get it, some people need structure. They don't have that within themselves to say, like, I'm going to teach this to myself through this YouTube curriculum. But if you're not going to be making those kinds of connections, you really have to think twice before taking $50,000 of net debt a year, which, by the way, you need 120 grand a year to just be able to pay back your debt after you get the taxes taken out. And you pay for a little something, you sleep on some couch, you know what I mean? Like, unless that degree is going to open up that door to allow you to make more money, don't do it.
That's the Money Momma said it first. I agree with you, though, that the college is the networking is the biggest thing, but the stuff you learn afterwards is so vital. And this is stuff that nobody talks in college or high school, middle school, anything about trust, about wills, about living, anything like that doesn't come up. So when your challenge for you obviously is something that's mysterious. People don't hear about it unless they're in that high net worth. But if you talk to these nurses that are laying their lives on the line to help take care of us, you mentioned that time was something they didn't care about it. Did some of them call you kind of just totally ignorant to what a will was?
No, everyone, I think, pretty much understands what a will is. And generally, they understand that they need a will. They've been told they need a will. They've also been told probate is bad. But they think that a will means no probate. Au contraire, because a probate means literally to prove the will. It's a Latin term that means to prove a will. That's it.
We learned some Latin today. There we go.
There you go. And look, I'm going to teach you very little Latin because Latin in high school is my worst subject by far, except for band, which I really did not do well in. But I can dance to music. I can't make it. It is what it is.
Hey, I can make the music I can't dance to, so it matches up. But that's an interesting piece.
Daryl, you got some swag. Come on, you can dance to it. Come on, let's be real here.
Well, but this is this is boring stuff that I try to make fun. And as people think about this, mortality is not a fun conversation. I mean, I think in my family, like my mother and father never talked about that. That was just something that was just a hard conversation. So when you're dealing with young couples, you mentioned earlier, you mentioned one thing about the future self, but what's like a way for people that are watching this to saying, hey, I need to figure out how to talk about this with so-and-so, with my parent, with my sibling, whoever. What have you found to be the easiest method to bring up this conversation before something happens?
Sure. I love you so much, Mom. You worked so hard in your life. I just want to make sure that, God forbid, should something happen, I know what you want me to do to make your legacy live on. That's it. It's really that simple. And, truthfully, I tell my clients, blame it on me. I say, tell them that your estate attorney made you ask that question. I don't care. I just want them to do the right thing and be protected and happy.
Yeah, this is like when I think about when I'm talking about life insurance, sometimes I'll be talking to a married couple and then the husband, I'm talking to him alone. And he'll say, oh, I can't afford life insurance right now, so I don't think I'm going to do anything. And I say, well, don't tell me that. Tell your widow that. It's something I kind of learned over the years. Like, it's not a bad thing to me. It's just your widow might care about that when that situation comes up that you couldn't afford it because of some partying or whatever you were doing. So you mentioned the unclaimed money and the thinking ahead. I think that's important for people to grasp from this is that these things aren't super difficult. Natalie, you mentioned your net worth of people you look for, but there's all different ranges in your firm. So can pretty much anybody call you to get help with this?
Absolutely. And if I can't help them, I will point them either to someone in my firm. And when I say I mean, like, maybe it's not my personal time one-on-one that we're doing, because it is what it is, right? And we have different hourly rates at the firm. But my staff would be thrilled to help them. And further, sometimes people really don't need a lawyer. And they might just need a basic document that they can do on their own with just a little coaching, which is great too.
Yeah, I know the trusts aren't, you can do a basic trust on your by yourself, but it's like you said, it's basic. You won't get all the details probably
Well, it's the funding. That's the problem, that people are not doing the funding properly. And here's the thing too, Daryl, okay, you don't have to be, for me to consider someone high net worth, it's a family with over $24 million. And that's not fair because clearly a family worth $5 or $10 million is high net worth.
Right.
But from an estate tax perspective, currently, we don't know what the law will be, but currently it's at the $24 million that you have an estate tax issue. However, people who have $2 million, they work damn hard for that money. So my position for them is not the taxes. It's, are you sure your business partner is not going to come sue you? Are you sure you're not going to get a divorce? Are you sure that your money is going to be creditor and lawsuit free for the rest of your life? And it's an asset protection plan that we very much do. And it's all about structuring of assets. If it's in your personal name, it's naked. It can be taken from you. Just like I say all the time, if you go outside, okay, and it's a sunny day, you're going to put on your sunglasses. If you go outside, it's a sunny day, you're going to put on your sunscreen. You're going to put your coffee in a coffee mug. You're going to put an umbrella up when it's raining. Now, I put the umbrella up because I don't want to ruin my hair. You know what I'm saying, ladies? But here's the deal. Why are we walking butt naked into the street with our money?
Boom, hit some reactions for that. That's knowledge bombs right there. And that's where Stacey had a good comment to add to this. Do it when you were young. My husband and I did this here, and a few months later we needed it. So Stacey, thanks for being transparent about that. We had a conversation about some stuff, and husband unfortunately passed away from COVID. And luckily,
God, Stacey, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was a hard conversation. Luckily, they were planning ahead, so it wasn't like they did it just because he got COVID. It was happening in the midst of everything. But she's 100% right. Do it when you're young, and young is relative. If you're able to do it, you're young. So I don't want people to think watching this, if you're 60 or 50, that, oh, I'm not young, I shouldn't do it. No, any age should do this because the same thing happens to all of us. And
it's very simple. The best minds have always said, put not your trust in money, put your money in trust. The Rockefeller said, own nothing, control everything. What they're talking about is a trust.
And Ursuline even said, as a mother, this is good stuff to prevent hurt feelings or the family falling apart over money and assets.
Absolutely.
And it happens all the time. I think jokingly Snoop Dogg said something about when he dies, let the family fight over it. Like he was kind of like, and I don't know if he changed his mind since then, but it was probably about 10 years ago. But this is a prevailing issue that a lot of people have this self mode, like they're only about self. So let's talk about the person that doesn't have kids. You mentioned kids and everything. If a person doesn't have kids, why would this still be beneficial for them?
They, I think, need it the most. I mean, if you don't have kids, just so you know, you all have a will already. It's called the state law of the state you live in. It's called intestacy, which means dying without a will. And it says who gets what if there is no will. Which, by the way, 64% of people die without a will. So majority of people are going through this intestacy, okay? Same process as probate, except instead of proving a will, you're going through and proving the family tree, essentially. Here's the deal. If you love somebody, if you care about something, maybe it's a charitable organization, maybe it's your pet, maybe it's whatever. And if you don't write that down, how the heck is the court going to figure it out? And the fact is, okay, it might go to your deadbeat dad if he's still alive, and if you have no one else and no other kids, it might go up a generation. And let's say your mom and dad are still living, God forbid something happens to you. You haven't spoken to your dad in years. Well, guess what? Now he is a half owner of that estate. And it's going to come after your mom who did everything for you. Yep. Or let's say that you get married to someone who's a second spouse or a third spouse. And you do have children from a prior relationship, but you didn't take the time to do a prenup or to update your will and trust. Well, guess what? Your widow is going to be the one taking instead of your kids. And it might get split depending on the state. Like in New York, it would go 50% to the widow, 50% to the kids. And guess what? If the kids don't like her, that's not going to be a pretty battle.
Yeah.
It's ugly. Real ugly.
And see, this is Chandra, comment, good information. This is stuff that people just don't know. I mean, you know the laws by state. Not every single state. I'm not going to say you know every single state at the top of your head right now, but you at least know every state's different. There's different issues to deal with, and that's where us layman people, you know, I know the life insurance side. I don't know the legal side, and I always say talk to a state attorney if you need help with everything further. So this is information that just doesn't get passed on.
I love what you're bringing up because especially in today's world, we may have properties and assets in more than one state, in more than one country. Do you realize you have to do a transaction in the place that you were domiciled? Domicile means the place that I go back to, my home.
Yep.
You're domiciled, let's say in Colorado, where you have assets in New York and California. You're going to have to go through a proceeding in Colorado and then pay New York and California counsel to do an ancillary proceeding for those assets. Anyone want to pay 3 lawyers? Now, here's the great deal about my firm. We have them all internally. We are a national practice, which is very original and very different for the estate planning world because of exactly this. You know how many friends of mine who are state attorneys in New York and California, they call me and they say, people are moving to Colorado. We need your help.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of influx of people to Colorado. I love the state. We did an RV road trip out there and we loved it. So it's one of those places that'll probably we'll end up there at some point also. Cool. But this world we're in right now, COVID's settling down a little bit. Things are getting better. But people got a glimpse of mortality very quickly in this last year. I mean, 600,000 people is insane to think about that. So now that things are kind of normal, not normal, but getting normal, we'll say that. What's your fear for people about when it comes to your work? Because I know you were busy during the pandemic. What's your fear of people afterwards as far as lackadaisicalness or something like that?
Doesn't bother me because if they want to be lackadaisical with their life, I make more money on the probate, and so do all my peers. And that's just the truth. And they make way more on the estate litigation. So you can either pay the lawyers or you can pay a little bit now and protect your family. And I prefer that you protect your family.
Yeah, I knew you and I would get along. Cause that's the same way with insurance. You pay a little bit now or a lot later. That's kind of the methodology I get people like, I don't want to pay a life insurance policy. Pay a lot now, a little bit now, or when your kids are fighting over stuff.
Daryl, and the best thing about life insurance is not even the death benefit. Yes, that's important. It's the living benefit. Most people will live a long time, okay? But you might live in a really crappy way because you're so sick that you need help. And that sickness can cost you $20,000, $25,000 a month in today's dollars. What will it be in 30 years? Who even can comprehend?
Right.
And if your $1 million death benefit can be used and drawn against as your living benefit, your long-term care rider on your policy, so your family doesn't have to come out of pocket to pay, you want that. So to me, life insurance is a tremendous tool for the living benefits. And then God forbid, if you die in a horrific accident, of course, your spouse, surviving spouse, your kids, they'll get a lump sum immediately that they can use because the person is no longer there. Their income is no longer there. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, my career began. I had a death claim 9 months after I got my license, which is most insurance people I meet, some of them never do a death claim. So the fact that I had to do one 9 months after I began this business was definitely shocking to me and unnerving. But it was a mom saying, hey, my son's about to get married. He worked for me. Let me get him a life policy so that way his wife doesn't have to worry about it because he was young and she's like, he's not going to probably do it. I'll go ahead and take care of it and just make sure it's my gift for the wedding. And it was on First 48, wrong place, wrong time, good kid, but he was just in the wrong place with some friends. And it was on First 48, a whole thing. And then he unfortunately passed away, but she luckily set it up ahead of time. And see, like your experience, that changed you with the car. That changed me like, man, y'all need to talk about this. I know it's not fun. I have a hard time talking to my own family about it. But over the years, it's something you just get used to. Like, do we want to go through another fight after a funeral? Do we want to go through another issue? Like, who's going to pay for the funeral? Who's going to pay for this? Do we really want to go through that again? So that's kind of my plea to people paying attention to this, that Natalie's doing a great job of helping you be proactive. And I love that you said you can pay a lot now or a little bit now or a lot later. I think people don't realize that. What's the spread difference so they get an idea? If you get just to give a range, if you were to get a trust now versus not, what's the estimate of
trust in the country, depending on your, let's say a basic trust, okay? No tax planning, no asset protection planning. You're looking from $3,000 to $6,000, depending on the practitioner and the state, okay? If you go to asset protection planning, you're looking at a multiple of that. If you're doing tax planning, I mean, look, if you have over $24 million, it doesn't even matter what I freaking charge you because the amount of money you're saving in the back end is so astronomical. It really doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you can typically expect to charge. Now, on a basic probate, typically it's at least 10 grand. Because it's an hourly process, and most lawyers are charging, $400 to $600 an hour in this space. And the courts are not caring about it's costing you this much money on the probate. They're taking their sweet time because they have 600,000 debts to worry about. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being the case, that's what you can look at there. That's if there's no fighting. If there's fighting, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So basically what I heard is that lawyers are eating well right now because of COVID-19 because people didn't get wills ahead of time and trust ahead of time. Unfortunately, this is feeding a lot of lawyers to be wealthy now, but that's not here nor there. But your main premise is that
mediator, Daryl, and the mediators in California and is a retired litigator. And he said to me, Natalie, there's only two kinds of cases I'm hearing now. Estate litigation and wage and hour claims, okay? That is how, and I don't do the litigation, just so y'all know. That is how lucrative it is to fight because guess what? It's so heart-wrenching, right? It's like your most personal thing. It's mom, dad passed away. I'm fighting with my sibling. They were away in Hawaii enjoying life. I was taking care of mom, and now this is the bullshit that they're coming at me with. People will spend anything because it's so entrenched in them, like the pride, the shit. I mean, it's the most kind of primitive stuff we could think about.
You going to church with this right now, but this is important for people to understand. I mean, you pay a little bit now or a lot later. I want people to realize that I'm big on being actionable with the guests I have on here. So you either pay for a basic will minimum, but you definitely need to get a trust or something in order to get ahead of time. For the people, I want to be respectful of your time because we can talk for hours about this, obviously, because we both stay in this space. But for the people that want to learn more about you and what you do, what should they do?
Come to my website, goldbergllp.com, send me an email, and I'm happy to help anyone I can. I'm at least going to be a great resource for people, no matter what their level of wealth. My mission in life is to really help people as much as possible. And then please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIner, so don't be shy.
LinkedIn, or we're going to make that a shirt. And then we had Floyd actually said pay an hour later, but either way, someone is paying. Sounds like upfront saves loved ones from the drama.
Darlings, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Just know that.
And Dora said definitely need to get this in line. And Tandra said, so good information.
Thank you, my soul sister. Thank you.
Look, we need you to help Britney Spears out. You sound like a better lawyer for her than her dad getting involved with all that
I'll
stuff.
tell you, everyone my whole life has told me how much I look like Britney. I am waiting for the call to be like, you need to represent me. I will do it for effing free. I just want to free Britney, okay? I want to free Britney. And anyone who's watching this or who watches the replay, if you are connected with Britney and she needs a great lawyer who will kick ass, let's go.
That would be a lovely campaign to say that Natalie got to work with Britney Spears with the business of benefits. So please, folks, if you know, I know somebody knows. I'm going to look for some people too. I know somebody knows how to get a hold of Britney. She has Instagram at least. She's not totally trapped. And then Ursuline said really good stuff. So thank you, Ursuline, for saying that. Well, folks, please make sure you reach out to Natalie if you have even if you just have questions. This is not a fun topic, but as you can see, Natalie makes it fun. So reach out to her if you have questions about estates, wills, anything of that not so fun stuff that we all have to do. We will catch you guys next time on Business with Benefits. Oh, real quick, you mentioned LinkedIn. Any other socials they should look for you on, just in case?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, though my Instagram is like a little bit doesn't really work so well. I'll tell you all about it later, you folks, if you want to know. But basically, LinkedIn is really the way to reach me. And truly, for anyone who's thinking of dipping their toe into being an influencer, speaking on LinkedIn or writing on LinkedIn, do it. It has been life-changing for me. And I know for Daryl, for you too. So I really encourage those to do it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you for saying that. Oh, actually, we have a quick question. Doris said, does Natalie practice in Florida?
I have an associate in Florida, Doris, so we're happy to help you.
Yeah, Doris, she's nationwide, so even if she can't do it, her practice follows the same methodology and mindset. So she'll have somebody, and she's one of the few people, actually the only person I've seen that's nationwide. So you are right, that's unique. But we will catch you guys next time on Business with Benefits. Please be safe. Please follow guidelines, be safe, and all that. And then half the year is gone now. Natalie kicks off the second half of the year. So look at your business for the second half of the year and see where you need to be. And if you're not, reach out to myself or Natalie to get help in insurance and estates. We will talk to you guys next time. Please be safe.